Warning, this video will contain spoilers for previous Xenoblade games. If you haven't played any, I suggest you click off now or get spoiled for major plot points from previous entries. We finally got more news on the Xenoblade franchise. Unlike the previous 3 Xenoblades receiving Switch 2 updates, we also got our first look at the next title in the franchise, Xenoblade Genesis. Something really interesting about it is it's not being called Xenoblade 4. The only other game in this series to not have a number title was Xenoblade X, and that was largely its own standalone game that didn't have any connections to the other 3 stories until Future Redeemed. However, there are some very important details seen and mentioned throughout the trailer for Genesis that could prove this game is connected to the past 4 installments, while still largely being its own game and start up something new. So let's go over everything in the trailer. So right off the bat, we learned this new term in the series called anima. It's what appears to be the source of magic and all life in this new world. However, it's also really reminiscent of the flame clocks from Xenoblade 3, as it is a deciding factor for battles won and lost in Genesis, though it seems like a much less darker than what the flame clocks were. Instead of feeding on the life force of fallen soldiers, it appears to be all around the world, with only a select few capable of using anima. Something really interesting I saw in a YouTube comment was that anima can be interpreted to be translated to mean pneuma, a very subtle but very in-your-face way of referencing Xenoblade 2, hinting more to its connection to previous titles. The trailer then cuts to a girl who appears to be our protagonist. She's given a weapon which she refers to as a blade. Now the term blade is really important to the franchise. It's what the main form of combat in Xenoblade 2 is based around, with the blades being life forms who bonded to one person and battled alongside them. It's also the name of a military organization in Xenoblade X, so while yes, it may seem like a regular line, there's absolutely something much deeper going on which will likely be revealed when the game releases. After she's given her blade, we see her being dropped off what appears to be her new school. This place is called Lukos, where she is given an anima cry stone, a stone that allows the vessel to use anima while also recording the user's thoughts and actions. Once again referencing Xenoblade 2, as the blades in that game also came from their own unique core crystals. So when a blade's owner would pass, the blade would also return to its own core crystal and have their memories erased, but the crystal itself would record and transfer data that the blade has gained throughout its life cycle and transfer it to Logos and Pneuma. Logos specifically feels very important here because that's the other name for Malos, the main antagonist of Xenoblade 2. His core crystal looks extremely similar to that of the Anima Cry Stone given to our protagonist. While yes, Malos, for lack of a better term, does meet his end at the end of the game, it's very likely his core crystal still lived on, as we see it briefly in Future Redeemed being used by N. That and a line we see towards the end of the trailer hints that we potentially likely haven't seen the end of Malos just yet. The stone also briefly glows into a shape eerily similar to that of Pneuma's sword, once again hinting at the connection to the past. Well, yes, in interviews, the staff over at Monolith Sauce said that the Cloud Saga was finished and that our next entry in this franchise, that being Xenoblade Genesis, would be its own story. I feel that there are still many important connections and references to past games for returning players. The soldiers who are capable of wielding anima are called vessels. It seems they go through a type of military school similar to that of 3 Houses. When they use anima, they glow in a very similar fashion to that of Ouroboros or other forms of fusion from Xenoblade 3. While so far there doesn't seem to be any form of fusion from person to person, it's likely a resonance with the Cryostone, as that's what enables most people to use anima. Everyone except the protagonist, who seems to be an exception to this rule though. The next unique form of anima we see is a girl who isn't fighting. We don't know exactly what she's doing, but her anima is the same color as Pneuma's. I haven't gone into too much detail, but both Malos and Pneuma were a part of a trio used to help sustain the world of Xenoblade 2. They're merely known as the Aegises. We'd be here all day if I had to explain everything, but basically, they monitor lesser known blades and transfer data to and from them. They pass that data to the Architect. Think of him as God, as he's responsible for the creation of the world we play in Xenoblade 2. With that little refresher out the way, let's continue with the trailer. We get our first look at a dragon with hints that they play a divine-like role, with someone mentioning that only a dragon's flames can purify a soul who's forsaken their faith, meaning that there will likely be a very important religious organization in this game's story. We then cut to a girl who appears to be a noble, calling our protagonist a backwater noble. I've seen a lot of my mutuals on the Bird app go crazy over the potential Yuri in this game. Hey, happy Pride Month, you know?
Today, I'm running around Inaba with a pack of wild lesbians! Let's go, lesbians! Let's go!
After her introduction, we see one of her classmates mention a line I spoke about earlier, that which mentions that the protagonist doesn't need a cryostone to use anima. Considering she's referred to as a backwater noble, it's very likely she got into this school via a scholarship because of her talents, hence the other girl feeling the need to bully her. The trailer then shows our protagonist clashing with a creature that kind of resembles the forms of Ouroboros from Xenoblade 3, while also briefly showing a magnitude of different characters. We don't know what role they'll play just yet, but we do see one of the classmates shown earlier holding someone using anima in a way extremely reminiscent to that of the protagonist using Ouroboros in Xenoblade 3. So maybe fusion will make a return here. We then see the other classmate who had used anima that looks similar to Pneuma's dance with sparkles flying around her with music playing. Could she be the story's equivalent of an Offseer, a person that helps souls pass on? We know that Noah had Numa's core crystal in his sword throughout the events of the game, so this new girl having a similar anima to her, while also having a similar role, would prove that the core crystal will play a very big role in the game's story. The last we see of our protagonist is a mention that she has a brother before the trailer mentions that the land we play on is worn by 6 suns. Maybe a bit of a stretch here, but the lighting here looks a lot like Alpha's. Lastly, the narrator speaks of a fallen god whose revenge has yet to be fulfilled. This god could be any character. It could be Alpha, as they wanted to annihilate both the worlds of Xenoblade 1 and 2, and was so powerful that the combined forces of Rex, Shulk, and even Zed to slow him down before finally being defeated at the end of Future Redeemed. It could also be Malos. Like I said, his core crystal is still vaguely around. However, while potentially godly, yes, his story did conclude in a way he felt emotionally satisfied, and that had completed his character arc. My last guess would be Zanza from Xenoblade 1. In his own words, he said he was immortal. However, we do see him die as he was linked to the Architect, and he dies the moment Zanza did, as both Xenoblades 1 and 2 took place around the exact same time. It could also even be a character we've never seen before. I barely mentioned X, as to be honest, I'm still playing through the game as we speak. The last thing I want to mention is that Genesis means creation or beginning, which makes sense. After all, this is supposed to mark a new beginning for Xenoblade, which is why it's not called Xenoblade 4, and while I do believe that's the case, I can't help but think that this game will have strong yet subtle ties to past entries, much like Xenoblade 3 did. It will be its own standalone game, but will still make callbacks to previous entries for longtime fans. One last thing I will make mention of is the absence of Chronicles in the title. To be fair, that part of the title is an English release thing only. It's always been absent for the Japanese name, so the chances are they're using this rebirth as a chance to make the names match up. The Xenoblade franchise has a very special place in my heart. I love the anticipation communities have before release, as everyone's really excited. We overanalyze and speculate on what could or won't happen. It's so fun being right or wrong when theorizing, because if I'm right, I feel like a grade A detective. But if I'm wrong, it's something I never saw coming and it blows my mind. It's so exciting, especially since the previous 3 Xenoblade games all got switched to upgrades, so hey, all the more reason to replay these games, especially if their lore is going to be important for Genesis. Well, that's all I have for this video. If you made it this far, I'd love a like, maybe even a subscription or a comment. I hope you all have a fantastic day or night. Bye-bye!